Hey students, this is Mr. Smith. You are watching a video on writing an FSA introductory paragraph with an inclusion for writing a thesis statement. Your assignment, of course, is to watch this video as a review. Hopefully a lot of this is familiar to you. I also hope you are taking notes while you watch this. This will be a resource for you through the entire year. Okay, through the entire year. This is the foundation that we lay down first. If you were at Paxson in 9th grade, or if you were in Florida in the 9th grade, or even earlier, you are familiar with the FSA, the Florida Standards Assessment. And the FSA rubrics, which I use for the majority of your essays in this class this year, are all the same. They're all based on the same categories and the same skills. So what I'm going to teach you, the techniques and skills I'm going to teach you, should be familiar. If you had Miss Trapp, I know they're familiar because Miss Trapp and I have met and we work together and we have taught similar concepts. A lot of this you might say, oh, I know what the funnel is. Miss Trapp showed us that. And that's great if that's the case. I may have some different aspects that I like to see, because now you're in 10th grade, so that your writing has to keep improving. It can't just be 9th grade writing. I might even use some different terminology, which is why taking notes is helpful, even if it is familiar. But it should be familiar, okay? And even if you're coming from outside of the state, if you are not a Florida resident or you weren't a Florida resident prior to this year, good writing is good writing. And there are three concepts that ensure that as you go through your school career and on to college and in life, you are going to write different styles of writing. But if you have three pieces of information answered, your writing will always be strong, and you'll always know what tools to use. Those three things are task, purpose, and audience. Okay? If you know your task and you know your purpose and you know your audience, no matter what piece of writing you are creating, you'll know what to pull from the different things you've learned in middle school, in high school, in college. You'll be learning all different ways of writing, okay? And some of it will be useful in any situation. So let's take a look at some examples. First example, let's say you're straight out of college and you're getting your first apartment, and you move into your apartment and you soon find out that your roof is leaking. Okay, it has a slow leak whenever it rains. You need to contact your landlord to get them to fix the leak in the roof, unless you like water where you live. So your task is to write a letter, okay, which is what you're writing to your landlord. Now it may be an email, but for the sake of this example, it's a letter. You want to be formal and professional. That's how you get things done. So you're writing a letter. What is your purpose? Your purpose is to persuade your landlord to fix the roof or to fix the leak, right? Sorry if it's a little sloppy. It's hard to write on my desk here, but that's your purpose. I want the roof fixed. I want the leak fixed. That's why I'm writing the letter. And the easiest of the three, who's the audience? That's correct. Landlord. If you didn't say landlord, you weren't correct. But if you said landlord in your head, that's the correct answer. Okay, so it's going to be a persuasive letter. So you will, if you remember your FSA rubrics, you have informative essays, you have analytical essays, you also have what? Argumentative essays, which are your persuasive forms of writing. And that's the kind of writing you'll be doing for this example. Now let's switch gears here. What if you're out with your friends at the movie theater or perhaps at a party and you want to ask your parents if you can stay out later than your original curfew? How are you going to communicate with them if you're not calling them? You're probably going to write a text message, right? So your task is to write a text to your parents. I know you already know the answer to audience. We'll get there in a second. What is the purpose? To increase or extend curfew. Is that persuasive? Could be, depends on your parents. Do you need to persuade them, or you just need to ask? Either way, that is your purpose. And of course, your audience is your parents. Now, as you can see, similar purposes, persuasion, not really similar audience or task, but you know your text message is going to look nothing like the letter you wrote to your landlord. Punctuation and grammar may not apply as much. You might have abbreviations like LOL, acronyms in a text. You're probably going to leave those out of the formal letter just to be professional. Okay, so you can already see some differences. Now let's take a look at the task that you're going to be doing most often as far as your essay writing in my class this year. Your task is going to be to write an essay. It is a different form than a letter or a text message for sure. What is your purpose? It depends. You are either going to be writing to inform and analyze, and that's going to be the informative style of FSA writing, or you're going to be persuading or arguing, which is going to be the argumentative form. And now that'll also dictate which rubric you use. But as you'll see in this class, as we get further into the year, the rubrics are very similar. There's some differences in the wording and in the purpose, obviously, but they're very similar. They use a lot of the same information. And your audience, of course, is me, okay? But for the sake of a good FSA essay, the audience is your FSA scorer, and really, it's the rubric. Okay? If you are writing for the audience that is the rubric as it is written, you won't go wrong. Okay, so these are the three things, guys: task, purpose, audience. Throughout the year, if I give you a writing assignment and you're not quite sure which tools to use, are we doing a research paper? Are we doing a really informal journal entry? Are we writing an FSA essay? Are we writing a quick write when you walk into class? There might be a bell ringer on the board and you got to write something real quick. It's real informal. Ask yourself, what's my task? What's my purpose? And who is my audience? And you'll know which pieces of what you have learned in the past and in my class and on into the future to use. Okay? Now let's move on to FSA essay writing, which is our task and purpose for this video. I'm going to focus initially on informative essay writing. We'll get to argumentative in quarter 2, but I want to review informative right now. And to be honest, the intro paragraph will change slightly, but the basic components will be the same. Okay? So you may have seen this from Miss Trapp, this shape. This is your intro paragraph. Okay? This is what an intro paragraph should look like. Not literally, but this is the shape for conceptual purposes. I call it the funnel. Ms. Trapp may have called it the same thing. Intro funnel. I've had students call it the pizza slice. I've had students call it the Dorito, which seems a little odd, but I've had students call it the upside down triangle, which those are probably math students. They're real precise. But I call it the funnel. And the reason I think, we should call it the funnel in my class, and you should call it the funnel, is because the funnel, the word funnel, tells you what you are really doing. Dorito does not tell you anything about it other than this shape, and then you got to figure out, well, why is it this shape? I forgot. Funnel tells you what is happening because you are funneling the reader from this top section to the bottom section. Okay? Does anybody know why this top is wider than the bottom? Well, it's because we start off general, okay, which is wide, and we move the reader, which is your audience, the reader, right, to the specific or narrow. And that's why we call it the funnel. You are funneling the reader from a general idea or concept to a narrow idea or concept. And how do we do that? Well, we do that with 3 essential pieces to your intro paragraph. The hook, the tag, or what can also be called or also include background information, and finally your thesis statement. The hook comes first. Why does it come first? Well, by nature, a hook is a general, non-specific thing. It's a way to grab your reader's attention, okay? In middle school, you may have been taught to ask a question. Have you ever considered, whatever. Or to write an anecdote, or there are other tricks to doing hooks. And a lot of my students, they come into my class and they love doing the question hook. Forget doing the question hook, okay? You're better than that. We can grow and write better than that. All you need to be doing with a hook is writing a general statement that relates to what your essay is about. It relates to the topic of your essay. But it is still general enough that the reader may not know specifically which text you're writing about or what your thesis is proposing. It's still a hook. It's still an interesting statement, but it has to be related. But stay away from the tricks like questions and so forth. Tag. Does anybody know what tag stands for? Tag stands for, I'll put it over here, title, author, genre. T-A-G. Tag. Title. Let's say we're writing an essay, which you will be writing an essay, or if you're watching this after first quarter, you've already written an essay about Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. The title is Slaughterhouse-Five. The author is Kurt Vonnegut. The genre, a lot of students like to say fiction. Yes, it is fiction. But if you're writing Slaughterhouse-Five, a fiction by Kurt Vonnegut, it just sounds kind of weird. So what we can call is a novel. The genre is novel. A novel is fiction. Okay? So tag is simply inserting somewhere in here, in the middle or near middle of your intro paragraph, title, author, and genre. If you don't have that, and you get to your thesis statement, your reader's like, what are we reading about? What is this essay about? So you want to identify title, author, and genre. And that's as simple as a one-sentence statement, if need be. You write a hook about, I don't know, so you write a statement related to war and the effects war has on the people who survive war. That's a general idea. It is related to Slaughterhouse-Five, so you could create a hook from that idea. That would be pretty strong. At some point in your intro, you want to then say, in Slaughterhouse-Five, a novel by Kurt Vonnegut, comma, and then continue on, with what you're saying in your intro. That's the background information, leading the reader to a specific thesis. But you've covered your title, author, genre. It's very important to do that in your intro. And then your final piece is the thesis, okay? That's the most specific statement in your intro paragraph. It's arguably the most important statement in your essay. It's what everything else in the body paragraphs, in the conclusion, everything leads back to your thesis. All the evidence you use to support what you're writing, whether you're argumentative or informative, must support the thesis. So you have a hook about war and the effects it has on people who survive war. You make sure you introduce Kurt Vonnegut, the title of the book, and that it's a novel. The background information is just my way of saying, what else can you say? You can't just be like, hook, one sentence, tag, second sentence, thesis, third sentence. That's too quick. Paragraphs have 8 to 9 sentences in them, usually, at least an intro, more for maybe a body paragraph. So you have more to write, okay? But this is a general overview. These 3 pieces have to be in your intro paragraph, okay? Now let's talk about the thesis statement. Again, it is the most important piece of the intro. What must a thesis statement do? What must a thesis statement do? There's really two important things, or necessary things. One, you answer the prompt. That's simple, isn't it? If the prompt asks you, how does the author of Slaughterhouse-Five use symbolism to convey the theme or a theme in the novel? It's a very general prompt. It's very generic and vague, but for the example that I'm doing, it's sufficient. Well, you got to answer the prompt. You're going to write an essay, or you're going to write a thesis, where you state how the author uses symbolism to convey a theme. So you answer the prompt. The second part of your thesis, identify your topics. What do I mean by that? Oops. Identify your topics. How many topics? Well, it depends. For a standard 4-paragraph essay, you're going to have 4 paragraphs. One is going to be your intro paragraph, one is going to be your conclusion. You're going to have 2 body paragraphs left over, so you would have 2 topics. If you have a 5-paragraph essay, which is our FSA standard, okay, you're going to have an intro paragraph and a conclusion paragraph, that's 2, and you'll have 3 body paragraphs. And each body paragraph will be covering a topic. So there can be 2 to 3 or more topics, depending on the length of your essay. Later in the year, in 4th quarter, when we do a research paper, you're going to have more than 5 paragraphs. Do you need more than 3 to 4 topics? Maybe, maybe not. We'll talk about that when we get to 4th quarter. But your thesis must answer the prompt, identify your topics. So remember that really generic prompt I gave you about use of symbolism to convey theme? Well, if my thesis statement is Kurt Vonnegut uses X, Y, and Z to convey a theme of blank, okay? The X, Y, and Z are your 3 topics, and they will also be your 3 body paragraphs, or at least the focus of your 3 body paragraphs. Something interesting, because we're talking about informative right now, right? This is a thesis statement for an informative essay. But what if we're writing an argumentative essay? I told you we'd talk about argumentative in quarter 2, and we will. But a thesis statement structure remains the same. You're going to be answering the prompt, only this time the prompt is asking you to state whether you believe in one thing or another. I think one of the old FSA prompts was about or one of the test prompts was should some people are talking about having school 12 months a year rather than 9 months a year. Do you support that? What are the pros and cons, whatever? And so you would argue for or against school being 12 months. Are you answering the prompt? Yes. We call it state your claim, but you're stating your claim, which is answering the prompt. It's the same thing. But you're still going to identify your topics or your reasons why school should be 12 months long or why school should not be 12 months long. You'll have your topics again, okay? So this is the basic structure of a thesis. We'll go over it in more detail as we practice in class, but you won't go wrong if your thesis contains these 2 factors. So let's go back and review real quick. I know I went through this fairly quickly, but hopefully a brief overview has been helpful. The intro paragraph shape, the funnel, as I call it, leads the reader from a general or non-specific hook to get their attention. It introduces the title, author, genre, and maybe some background information. I mean, if you're writing about Slaughterhouse-Five and war, maybe you want to add some information about which war you're going to be writing about. In this case, for Slaughterhouse-Five, it's World War II. More specifically, the Dresden firebombing. See how we're getting more specific. General hook, war and surviving war. World War II, Dresden bombing. Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five. We're getting more and more specific. And then finally, we end with a thesis statement, okay, which states your purpose for the essay. It states that you are going to be writing about this thing, and these are the supporting topics to back up your thesis. Okay? This is a very general overview, guys. If you have questions, I want you to come to class, next class, prepared to ask those questions. So if you are a forgetful student, you'll want to write your questions down. If you have any confusion about this, you'll want to write down those aspects that you are confused about so that you can ask in class. We can cover it in class. I can clarify and confirm or deny your ideas. And then what we're going to do, I guess pretty much as soon as you walk into class, we're going to start writing an intro paragraph. I'm going to give you a prompt. It's a sample practice prompt. It's about Slaughterhouse-Five, so hopefully you read your summer reading. But we're going to begin to practice writing intro paragraphs. Then we'll move on to body paragraphs, and we'll move on to conclusion paragraphs. Keep in mind that there are a vast spectrum of skilled writers. You are either lower on that spectrum or higher on that spectrum, depending on how you are as a writer. We'll all grow this year as far as writers. We'll all improve. But regardless of where you are on that spectrum, these guidelines will help you. If you're the kind of extra skilled essay writer who looks at this and says, well, that's real basic, I can do multi-sentence thesis, I can, do all different kinds, I can tie my hook into my conclusion, I can do all kinds of things. Well, great, that's great. If you can't do that, you'll learn how to do that. If you can do that, again, this is a foundation. This is the basics. So I hope this quick review and overview has been helpful. I hope you took some notes, and I hope you have some questions or ideas you want to share next class, which you'll have time to do. And that's the end of this video. The next video I'll prepare for you guys is on body paragraphs and the structure of an informative body paragraph. Then I will show you how to integrate text evidence seamlessly, which you will need to do in an FSA essay. And then finally, we'll cover the conclusion paragraph, everyone's least favorite paragraph, because you just want to get out of the essay. But I'll show you how to make it easy and effective. Okay? Thanks, guys, for watching. I'm excited about this year, and I'll see you in class.